Just to be clear, we're talking about bad debt collection, correct?
Right, you're talking about accounts that now this difference between delinquent and defaulting. Now, if you're delinquent, you're just a little bit behind, but usually you can make arrangements with your credit card company or your bank and get current on that, and you'll be fine. It may cost you a little bit more in interest, or you may have to pay penalties. But when an account has gone basically dormant for say 180 days, what the creditor do is they will sell that account to a debt collection agency, and when it goes into collections, those could stay on your credit report for up to 7 years, even if you pay it off. So you want to try to avoid being in that situation altogether. So if you're a little bit behind in your bills, reach out to your creditors and try to make some kind of arrangement to get current, because you don't want to get into this situation. Now, these accounts, and again, Nevada's looking at about 3 collection accounts per person. So every one of those accounts is going to stay on your credit record for 7 years, even after you pay it off.
Something that I really want to touch on in this story is the timeline of how everything works. Could you elaborate more on exactly how it all unfolds about this collection?
Okay, now if you're again, now if you're delinquent, that basically means that you're either late on a payment or you missed one payment. And usually, and when that happens again, you can just reach out to, or you can, well, first thing you need to do is make sure you're current on that amount, because if that, for whatever your outstanding amount is now, particularly with credit cards with interest like at 22 and 23%, the interest is still going to accrue on that unpaid amount. So you're still going to owe the amount plus all the interest plus any late fees. So that's within the first 30 to 60 days. So you want to make sure you're current on that. So once 180 days hits, roughly 6 months, if the creditor is unsuccessful in getting you to at least become current on your balance, essentially they're going to close the accounts and then refer that account to the debt collector. And that's when the debt collector can do whatever they need to do to recoup those funds, and which could be legal action, they could garnish wages, there's a number of actions, but they will work with you as well once you hit the 60 days. But you have to reach out, because it's not going to go away. So you have to make sure that if you are in this situation, that you work with the debt collector as best you can to at least make some kind of good faith effort to become current on that, even if it's just paying up a little bit at a time. But again, that's still going to be on your credit report for 7 years, even if you pay it off in one fell swoop. Once it goes into collections, it's going to show up on your credit report, and it's going to stay there for 7 years.
So I guess like the important message is take care of it before it hits collection.
Right. Now, the repercussions, again, we talked about how it's going to be on your credit report for 7 years. That's going to make it very difficult for you to get any other type of credit in the future, whether it's a mortgage, whether it's another credit card account or a car loan. And if you are fortunate enough to be approved, you're going to be paying a much higher interest rate. So keep that in mind also, because there's short-term effect. Yes, this can be in your credit report, but that's going to affect your ability to get credit for 7 years.
So just so I make sure that I got this timeline right, you have 60 days or 6 months to
Well, you
uh
don't want it to get to the 6 months, is what we're saying. So the sooner you can become current on your bills, the better, because that's usually the cutoff is when the creditor is basically done with you. They'll close your account and refer to the collection agency. So the objective is to not let it get that far. So the sooner you can become current, the better.
so if it hits 6 months but you're actively paying on it, are you in the safe zone or is it you
Oh,
haven't,
you're still good if within that 6 months, as long as you're keeping up the minimum payments
but if
within
you
that
haven't
six.
made
If you haven't paid anything, or at least made any attempt to make a good faith payment on that for 6 months, that's when it goes into collections. But as long as if you make some kind of arrangement with the creditor where you're going to pay X dollars, they might even cut you a break on the interest during that. As long as you're making your payments and making a good faith effort to get current, you're okay. But if you're making no payments or making no arrangements to make those payments after 6 months, that's when you're going to get into trouble with collections.
and then from there After, let's say you did not make that a one payment, from there, they close the account.
After 6 months.
After 6 months, they close the account, and then it's sold to a debt collector.
Correct.
And then once it's sold to the debt collector, can you know go what happens after that? Once it's sold to the debt collector, they'll get in touch with you and you should, but at that point, it's already on your credit report for 7 years.
Yes, it's already, once the creditor makes that report to the credit bureau, that's on your account.
So what should we say to the people who say, okay, let the 7 years, let it, once 7 years go by, am I in the clear?
As long as you've, as long as you've stayed current on other accounts and haven't gone in the collection with any other accounts after 7 years, that part of it will fall off your credit report. So you at least want to keep current with all of your other accounts. Otherwise, you're gonna keep having these collection reports on your credit report. Each one is on there for 7 years.
And does your account take a big hit if you let the 7 years go by? Because what if someone's watching this and they're on the fifth or sixth year, should they just wait it out or should they pay it?
Well, it's going to be on your credit report whether you paid it or not. So, but you just want to make sure that you don't, if you're that close to it falling off your credit reports, you want to stay current on all your other reports, so nothing else will affect your credit score. So once that falls off, you're good. So you want to make sure that your slate's clean with all of your other accounts.
What if someone wants to negotiate? Do they do that? It's Where should negotiation come in? Should they negotiate before it hits the 6 months? But let's say, yeah, can you negotiate bad credit?
Oh, absolutely. Well, absolutely. If your account is delinquent and you're having trouble, again, but it's important to get out in front of this as soon as you can. Yeah, your credit card company, your bank, they want your business, so they'll work with you, whether it's some sort of a negotiated amount. Maybe they'll cut you a break on the interest rates, defer your payments, or you just pay a set amount. Yeah, it's always up for negotiation. You could also do the same with the debt collectors too. You can make arrangements, but you have to be able. Again, you don't want to get to that situation, so it's best to address any collection or any non-payment issues with the creditor first before it falls into collections. The sooner you take care of that, the better off you'll be.
How exactly should a person negotiate? Like, what should is there a place where they could go step by step, or how should they tackle it?
Well, you can contact your individual creditors, and most of them have like a financial hardship department that you can explain your situation and said if we can put a pause on the payments, or if we can negotiate a smaller amount or reduced interest rate. And usually just call the number on the back of your credit card to your customer service, and they can direct you if they have some sort of a department that can help you with that. You can also enlist the services of an outside debt consolidation services where they work with all of your creditors, and then they combine all of your delinquent accounts into one monthly payment that you would pay to them. Check your credit score regularly to kind of monitor how your credit score is going up and down. And you want to check that credit score for any errors. If something falls off after 7 years and it's still on there, you want to make sure you want to reach out to the credit bureau and correct any errors, because sometimes things like that do happen when you have a entry in your credit report and it doesn't drop off when it's supposed to. So you want to always monitor your credit report. That here at Wallet Hub, we have free credit scores, free credit reports. You can take a look and just see how you're doing.
So once it hits collection, it's already done its damage. But if you pay, is it less of a damage than it would if you just let it like fall off your account?
Well, again, it's going to be on your account. Now, it indicate how long it took you to pay that off, but it's still going to be on your account. And again, future lenders will take that into account. If you paid it off the day after you got a collection call, or whether it's a year, it's not going to affect how long it stays on your credit report, but future lenders will look at that.
See
And
how to see how quick you try to pay it off or how quick you
Correct.
try to get it resolved, but it still did the damage to your credit score.
Correct.
Got you. How can bad debt collection affect a person's credit score just overall?
Well, that can do tremendous damage to the credit score, because that your payment history is one of the most important factors that goes into your credit score, and that's something that lenders are going to look at. They're going to look, have you made payments on time? And again, most of the times, if you're like 30 days late and get current, those types of things are not going to show up on your credit report. But when you miss that payment and you miss a series of payments, that's when it goes on your credit score. And it only goes downhill from that the longer that you wait until it gets into collections.
Now that the medical debt is eliminated off of credit scores, do you think that would help Nevada with, or just overall, do you think that will help with collection problem?
I think so, because medical debt is one of the huge reasons that people fall into bankruptcy. But again, we're in a situation now, given the economy, is where so many people are putting everyday expenses on credit cards. When typically a credit card is basically supposed to be a safeguard, or you could treat yourself to a big ticket item every now and again and pay it off. But when you're putting groceries and school clothes and gas and utilities on your credit card bills, that's when it gets tough. And again, because you're paying 22-23% interest on average on those things. So that Happy Meal that you get at McDonald's, you're going to be winding up paying 22% interest on that 3 years from now. So
Could you explain about how someone's debt may be sold to a collection agency? Um, and if that person's debt is sold, but is that basically the
that's the credit in your account
creditor
is
part?
debt and selling that to the collection agency.
Will you end up owing more because do they add an extra interest rate or anything like that on?
No, once they close the account, whatever that balance is, now it's going to include all the interest that's accumulated during those 6 months in which you didn't pay and all fees. So whatever that amount is, that's what's going to be referred to the collection agency.
Gotcha. And then, like you said, you can make payments with the collection agency.
You can make arrangements to pay it off all at once or set up a payment plan with them, but it's important that you stick to it.
What about the Fair Debt Collection? Is it Policy Act? Is that anything people should know about?
Well, you want to make sure that you're up on it, just so you know what debt collectors are capable, what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. So you want to review that. It's the Fair Credit Act or something. I don't have that in front of me, but there's legislation out there that gives the consumer certain rights, particularly when it comes to like times that collection agencies can contact you and the methods that they can use. So you want to make sure that you're up to date on any legislation involving that, so you know what your rights are.
Gotcha. And then I guess my last question is like, what would be your main advice that you would give somebody that is currently struggling with debt collections?
Well, the very first thing you need to do is to avoid getting into this position in the first place. So you want to review your finances regularly, review your credit report regularly, create a budget, stick to it. If you fall behind for whatever reason, if there's an unforeseen circumstance in which your financial situation changes, again, reach out to your creditor, explain the situation, and just make some good faith effort to keep up those payments.